Hey everyone, we are Gordon and Aimara. We're a slow traveling couple who started our adventures in September of 2021, going all around Turkey, and we just got done spending 70 days in the Yucatan Peninsula.
We have been meaning to make this video for a long time now. We're not in Mexico anymore, but our last stop in the Yucatan Peninsula wasn't exactly the best experience. We'll share more later. And then we went to Mexico City and we meant to do the video there, but we got sick. So right now we're in Albania and we're doing the video now, so let's start. Let's talk about our itinerary. So as mentioned earlier, we spent 70 days in the Yucatan Peninsula, and we do want to be clear that this is not like a Mexico travel series. This is just a Yucatan Peninsula travel series. We decided to do it this way because Mexico has so much to offer and is so close to home that we break it apart in 3 different trips. So the next one probably will be Central Mexico and then Baja, and this one is just the Yucatan Peninsula.
Yeah, so we started on the Yucatan Peninsula's Caribbean coast, and it was a total vacation. And we went diving, explored beautiful beaches. It was just a tropical dream. And then we crossed over the peninsula to explore some of the Yucatan's most famous colonial cities. And again, absolutely stunning. We visited incredible Mayan ruins along the way. We went into so many different cenotes all across the peninsula.
It was incredible.
It was awesome.
So the Yucatan Peninsula is probably the most touristy and popular region in all of Mexico, and even though there's super touristy places there like Playa del Carmen and Tulum, we didn't visit any of those places. We went to CANCUN because we wanted to write a blog post comparing CANCUN and COZUMEL to help you pick what's best for you, but we didn't go to the most popular places in the peninsula.
Yeah, exactly. There were a lot of really cool places in the Yucatan Peninsula that we were very excited to visit, like the beaches in COZUMEL, the diving, and the colonial cities. But part of the goals for the travel series was also to show people that there are other options on the Yucatan Peninsula that are much less touristy and off the beaten path, and to show you that you don't have to go to just CANCUN.
Yeah, exactly. And we discovered so many great cities that we loved, and we can't recommend them enough just because they're less busy. You get to have more authentic experiences, and honestly we didn't know that we were going to find these things in the Yucatan because it's so popular, and we did, and we're going to share a lot of that stuff later in the video. Unfortunately, the first question that people ask when visiting Mexico is it safe? And our experience is that the Yucatan Peninsula was super safe.
Yeah, exactly. We never ever worried about our personal safety, and in fact the Yucatan Peninsula is the safest region in all of Mexico. It does vary a little bit depending where you are, so places like CANCUN and Tulum does have a little bit more issues, let's say.
Those are the ones that you see in the news.
Yeah, exactly. But places like CAMPECHE, MERIDA, VALLADOLID, all these places that we visited are safer than most big cities in the US.
Oh, for sure.
And we asked locals, we talked to them, how safe is it? They're like, don't worry, you can be outside at 2 a.m. with your camera.
And we did it. We traveled by bus, where you put your suitcase down. We never ever had to worry about our safety, and that's something that you need to know, and stop looking at the news and thinking that Mexico, something bad's gonna happen to you, because the farther you go off the beaten path, the safest it is.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about money and budgeting. We're going to share how much we spent in our trip, for everything, for food, accommodation, everything. But the first thing is to know that the currency in Mexico is the Mexican peso, and $1 equals more or less 20 pesos. And you can also pay in dollars. In a lot of places they are accepted, but you're not going to get a great exchange rate, so it's recommended that you carry Mexican pesos with you.
Yeah, so it's generally a good idea to have between $40 and $80 worth of Mexican pesos on hand. Most places do accept credit card, but if you go to a smaller restaurant, or if you're in a smaller town, then they may not accept credit card, or if they do, they will add an additional charge of 3 to 5%. So it's always good to have some Mexican pesos in your wallet. It's also generally pretty easy to find an ATM. Most towns will have them in convenience stores, or the bigger cities obviously have banks where you can pull cash. The only thing is the smaller fishing villages that we visited, like PUNTA, no ATMs, no credit card acceptance, so definitely plan ahead if you go to these types of places.
Yeah, exactly. That's just one thing to keep in mind. When it comes to tipping, generally 10 to 15% is commonly accepted or expected at restaurants or your local guide, but in the smaller places you really don't have to do it unless they have a tip jar and you want to.
Yeah, so for street foods or very local restaurants, they don't expect any kind of tip. Also cantinas, where the focus is alcohol, there's also not an expectation to tip. And taxi drivers, there's no tipping for taxis.
Now we're gonna talk about budget, and I have my laptop here because we do keep track of every single penny that we spend so we can share this useful information with you. And we're gonna start with accommodation. We average $50 a night. This is mostly Airbnbs, and usually like we're kind of like picky, right, about the places that we stay. Like we try to have like a kitchen so we can cook like some of our meals, comfortable, clean, with good reviews. Nothing fancy, but decent.
And space for working.
Yeah, and working space.
Next is our food budget. So for 70 days, we spent $730 on groceries and $1,600 eating out, which also includes our alcohol budget. So our daily average for food for the two of us was around $33. The cheapest way to eat in Mexico is actually street food and eating at local markets. It's also way cheaper than getting groceries and cooking for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
We had meals there, but like wasn't something that we did on a daily basis. But if you want to bring down that food budget a ton, just go to the local market, eat all your meals there. It's super cheap.
Or shop there too, because that's a lot cheaper than the grocery store. Now for transportation, these are like different like subsections. So the first one is car rentals, and this varies a lot. So like the cheapest car rental was $50 a day, the most expensive was $95. And this is expensive. Like this doesn't include like parking or tolls or gas, which is like very high right now. So towards the end of our trip, we ended up like switching more to like colectivos, right? Like because,
yeah, it's a local transportation and away from rental cars.
Yep, because it wasn't cheap and it was also most times a hassle.
Next up is taxis, and taxis are pretty affordable on the Yucatan Peninsula in general. I'm looking here, and apparently we took over 30 taxi rides while we were there. That is shocking to me. I do not remember 30 rides. And our average payment was about $5. That was usually like from a grocery store or just like taking a 10-minute ride. And also Ubers are very cheap. They're available in Merida and CANCUN, but not many other places. But if you can't find them, use them because they are super affordable.
Yeah. There's also another way to move around that is called colectivos, which are the local buses, and they have buses and they have taxis too. So like the buses are usually like $2.50 per person, and they like take you. You don't use them like that much to move like in the city. We usually like walk a lot, but they take you to a lot of the touristy places. So for example, from Valladolid, we took a colectivo to Chichen Itza instead of renting a car, and it was $2.50 per person, which saves you a lot of money if you want to visit like this most popular sites and you don't have a budget for a car rental.
The last part of this transportation budget is how much we pay to get from one city to the other. So there's generally two ways to do that. There's like the tourist buses and there's also colectivo taxis. So for the tourist buses, they're a little bit expensive, so we paid up to $21 per ticket to get from one city to the other. The ones that were a little bit closer, we paid $11. So it felt a little bit expensive, but nothing like too crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's also a colectivo taxi, which is where you like wait in a taxi for it to fill up, and then you go with like fellow passengers. That's like an easier way to get around with like less visited cities that are kind of like close to each other. Yeah. And that's also pretty affordable.
Yeah, a little bit like more expensive than the bus, but cheaper than like a private transportation, so might be worth it.
So let's talk about the cost for activities. As a general rule of thumb, anything closer to Cancun, Tulum, Playa del Carmen is much more expensive than stuff you'll find on the other side of the peninsula. So things like Mayan ruins, the famous Chichen Itza and Ekbalam, which is also pretty close to Cancun and those other places. Entrance is like $25 per person, and a private guide, if you get them by yourself, is like $50 per person. And if you compare that to some of the less visited places like around Campeche, those are like $4 to enter the Mayan ruins, and like a guide is like $20.
Yeah.
So prices vary a ton by where you are, and also be careful because they do try to rip you off in some places if you're close to like Cancun and like those areas.
We saw that in
cenotes.
Yeah, we saw that.
And then cenotes, that kind of like ranges from like $2.50 to $8.50. Again, like the more touristy ones will be more expensive.
Yes.
And like on the low end, it's about like $2.50 per person. So if you're coming to the Yucatan Peninsula, you're probably also interested in water activities. We love the scuba diving in COZUMEL, and that costs about $90 for a 2-tank dive. The service is incredible, it's totally worth it. It's obviously cheaper than the US. And then there's also like popular nature tours, which we did in Punta Allen, which are also available in a place called Los Lagartos. Rio Lagartos. And for those, it's like nature tours to the mangroves and like looking for dolphins and manatees and those kind of things. And they charge about like the boat, so they charge $150 for the boat to go out, which can fill up to like a maximum of 6 guests. So if there are 6 guests, then you split the $150 with those 6 people. If it's just you, then you have to pay the entire $150. So it can get pretty steep.
Yeah. Some things are pretty expensive. We did a lot of activities like cenotes and Mayan ruins, and we made videos about like most of them that are linked in our channel, but we were also very lucky thanks to this guy here because we did save a lot of money during this trip thanks to our credit card points and travel hacking. And I know we mentioned this earlier like in our Turkey video that we're working on a course that we're going to launch, but it has proven to be a lot more difficult than we thought it would be. So now we're doing a course on how to launch a course to make it better for you so you get like the most out of your body. So if you're interested in travel hacking, I'm gonna leave a form in the description so you guys can sign up and I can send you an email when the course is live.
It's a great way to save a lot of money.
It is, yeah, it is. So let's talk about visas and entry requirements for Mexico, and we can only speak like for ourselves. So I am Venezuelan, but I live in the US, so I have like a green card. So I didn't have to apply for a visa, but if you are Venezuelan and you don't live in the United States, you do need to apply for a visa. And also, this probably only is valid for like Venezuelans, but the prórroga, which is like our passport extension, it is accepted in Mexico.
For Americans, there is no visa requirement. All you need is a valid passport to enter Mexico, so it's super easy. But once you arrive to Mexico, you are given a visa card, so that's for anyone that enters the country. And the person at immigration, they decide how long that you can legally stay within the country. It's the best practice to be very honest about how long you're staying. We said that we might be there for like 3 months and they let us stay for like 100 days. Yeah. Because if you overstay that amount of time, then you can get in a lot of trouble. So don't say like 5 days when you're intending to stay there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you will get
busted. Be honest and just like look at how much time you were given. That's a good practice because it's an easy thing to like overlook. And I think the maximum that you can say as an American, I think it's 6 months. Now we're gonna cover how to move around the Yucatan Peninsula as a tourist. And there are basically 4 ways that you can move around. So it's private transportation, a car rental, occasional ferries, and buses, but we're mostly going to cover buses and car rentals because we have like really good tips for you. So the bus system in the Yucatan Peninsula really surprised us. They have a company called ADO in English, which is like a luxury bus company that we took to most cities and it was incredible, right? Yeah,
the service is great. It's super easy to book. It's always running on time. A pro tip, if you go online and book the seats between 1 and 4, then you sit at the very front of the bus and you have some extra legroom. And you can also watch the bus drivers wave to each other every time they pass. Every single time.
Just for that reason, not the space, but to see the bus drivers like say hi at each other is like reason enough to book the first row.
Yeah. Also in most like major cities, there's an ADO terminal where you can like go in and book tickets in advance. You can also pay credit card there most of the times if it's like a bigger city, but we just like to do it online.
It's just easier and we really wanted the front row because it's tall. When it comes to car rentals, we did not have like the best experiences all the time. Yeah,
car renting in the Yucatan Peninsula is an adventure. It's also pretty pricey. Most of the times we were paying like $60 to like $90 to rent a car for one single day. But also like booking, it was a terrible experience. So sometimes we would book online like through like an actual like car rental company, like a renowned one, and then it would show up and the shop was closed or they wouldn't have the car. And it would just create a giant
we had to wait like hours outside, like find another car with another agency. Like it was a mess.
That said, if you do get a car, it is very easy to drive through the Yucatan Peninsula.
That is true.
It is totally safe. Like the roads are in good conditions. Like you can get places very fast because there's no one in the Yucatan Peninsula. So like the roads are empty and you can just cruise along and it's pretty easy.
Just, you've been warned. That's all. Just be prepared that anything can happen.
Now we'll talk more about our itinerary and our favorite cities and towns. I'll start with the more like coastal towns that we visited. So we went to COZUMEL, CANCUN, PUNTA, which is like a secluded fishing village, BACALAR, and ISLA HOLBOX. And the places that we loved were COZUMEL, for sure. The diving there was absolutely
If you love fish and scuba diving, like you have to go to COZUMEL.
Yeah, COZUMEL is amazing.
And mojitos.
Mojitos are really good.
I'm not kidding, I've had a lot of mojitos in my life. This is the best mojito I've ever had.
Punta Allen was also an amazing kind of like undiscovered gem. It is very, very difficult to get to and there's not a lot going on in the village. It's like 500 people that live there and it's super slow, but we loved it. We just like loved getting off the grid and like relaxing.
It was awesome.
It was a dream. Bacalar is also a really cool town. It seems to be changing pretty quickly and becoming more like trendy and in the know. So get there soon before it becomes like too developed as like maybe like Tulum would be.
Yeah,
but right
exactly.
now, it's a
BACALAR, we
place.
loved BACALAR, and then we also visited CANCUN, as I mentioned earlier, to write like a blog post, and we visited ISLA HOLBOX. To be perfectly honest, like we're not that type of bloggers that we just like everywhere that we go. Like CANCUN and HOLBOX, we did not like at all, and we wrote about it so you know like what to expect, like if you decide to go to these places, because they're not for everyone. After spending some time on the coast, we went inland and we visited the most like famous colonial cities in the Yucatan Peninsula. We went to Merida, to Valladolid, and Campeche. And out of those three, if we had to pick one, it would be Campeche, right?
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, Campeche just connected with us. We really loved it there. It was like a slower pace. The people there were super friendly, and there were also a lot of great like day trips that we took from there to like off the beaten path locations.
Campeche was awesome. That's like off most people's like radar, and you do have to check it out because it's incredible. Not to say that we didn't like Merida or Valladolid. Yeah, they are. All three of them are amazing. But if we have to like recommend one, we recommend Campeche first, but also visit the other two on a different trip. When it comes to our favorite activities, these are not ranked, but these are like our top 5. And the first one is scuba diving in COZUMEL.
Scuba diving in COZUMEL is amazing. We were so lucky to go for like 3 different days on 6 different dives, including a night dive.
It was a dream.
There's so much life underwater. It was incredible. We could go back like every week to COZUMEL to go scuba diving.
I would feel very lucky if we get to go back to COZUMEL like every year for a week to go scuba diving. It's incredible.
We also loved visiting a ton of different cenotes around the Yucatan Peninsula. Some of our favorites were located in a town called Jomun, which is pretty close to Merida. And a lot of them are like undiscovered, and they're just so like beautiful, and you like have them to yourselves and just like, dive in the cool water.
It's incredible. Oh my gosh, cenotes are so beautiful. Like there's this place, like as you mentioned, like Jomun, and it's known as the Ring of Cenotes, and they have like over 300 cenotes there, and you can like arrange these like tours that they take you in like a moto taxi, and you can like tell them like, you know, where you want to go, what you want to see, and they take you. You can spend the whole day swimming in different cenotes.
It's also a great way to cool off because the Yucatan Peninsula is hot, very hot. Super hot.
Another favorite activity that you have to do if you go to BACALAR is go on a sunrise kayak on your own. Like we did it on our own. We share everything like in the video. That was one of the most beautiful sunrises that we have ever seen. It was incredible to see like all the colors like in the lagoon. The
lagoon in BACALAR is known as the 7-color lagoon, and once the sun starts to rise up, then the lagoon just like changes into all these different colors of like blues and creamy whites and like turquoises, and it's just like such an incredible place to be in the morning, just like all by yourself.
It's beautiful. You have to do the sunrise kayak in BACALAR.
One of our day trips from Campeche was to a place called Miguel Colorado. This is like an eco park reserve, and it was absolutely stunning. We saw so many monkeys just like climbing in the trees, and it was just beautiful. We did zip lining over a cenote, which I hated, and so I actually think we should take this off the list. I'm super afraid of heights, and we were like 300 feet over a cenote, and I never looked down, and I don't actually remember it that well because I think I blacked out. Oh, okay. Oh my God, we're so high up. Oh, I'm not gonna look down. I can't look down. Oh my God. We're like 300 feet in the air, flying over a cenote. Oh my God. But Aimara says that we had a nice time.
It was awesome. Like the people, like it's inside like a Mayan village, and everyone that works there is Mayan, and they're like super proud of their culture, and they're like so chatty, and it's great because they also don't get like a ton of visitors, so you have this whole incredible park like basically all to yourself.
Yeah. And you can kayak and swim into an open cenote.
Oh my gosh.
It's just a dream.
Yeah, that day was a dream. Again, we also made a video about it that you have to check out. I'm gonna put it here because you have to go there if you go to Campeche. And last but not least, let's talk about Mayan ruins. We visited like 7 different or 8.
Yeah.
And our favorite one was one called Etzna that you can visit from Campeche. And honestly, we visited like even Chichen Itza, and this one like is top of our list, right? Like overall experience, like price, like the guide that we had, it's incredible.
Etzna is super beautiful. Like the main pyramid is huge, and you can still climb a lot of the structures and get like incredible views.
Yeah.
And a lot of like the time you have the entire place to yourself, so it just like feels more like, I don't know, like spiritual and like special. Like some of the places like Chichen Itza are very beautiful and like interesting. but there's just so many people that like you miss like, I don't know, some kind of element that makes it more.
Yeah, that's true. Like in
rewarding.
like overall experience, it's not, go to it's not. It's incredible. You're not gonna regret it.
We can't talk about visiting the Yucatan Peninsula without talking about all the delicious foods that we tried.
Oh my gosh.
And to start, the cochinita pibil.
That is probably the most famous dish in the Yucatan Peninsula, and this is like a slow cooked pork that they cook like underground with all this delicious like spices, and it's just delicious. You're gonna see it everywhere, and you have to try it in like tacos, tortas, like anywhere you see it, try it because it is delicious. We recommend.
Very often it's a breakfast food, so like don't go looking for it at night. Like it's probably already like run out.
Yep.
So that's probably true for a lot of like these like Mexican street foods.
Yeah.
Go in the morning and look for them because they run out. Supplies go quick.
Pro tip. The other one is relleno negro, which is like traditionally made with like turkey, and it's also cooked underground with like a bunch of like ground like chilies and like burnt spices. It's like black. It doesn't look like beautiful, but it is delicious. So wherever you go, we recommend, it's not great everywhere, so just like ask locals where is the best relleno negro and go have it, because it is so good. You can also have it in tacos and tortas.
Some other famous Yucatan street foods that you have to try are panuchos and salbutes. These are two things that we had never heard of before arriving to the Yucatan Peninsula, but they're absolutely delicious. They're like different versions of similar things, but like fried tortillas, stuffed with refried beans, and then topped with, usually the typical way is smoked turkey. Yeah. And it's just like love in a bite.
Delicious. I mean, I don't mean to like plug every video we made about the Yucatan Peninsula, but we did make 3 food tour videos where we try all these delicious foods and we share like how much they cost, where to have them. So if you visit any of the cities, you have to check out those videos and go and try those foods because they're so good.
And a personal favorite food from the Yucatan Peninsula is pollo estilo Sinaloa. So that's from the Sinaloa state in Mexico, but it's very popular in places like BACALAR and CAMPECHE. And it is just the most delicious chicken, like grilled chicken with like a red seasoning that's like spicy and delicious. And I absolutely fell in love. Like I could eat that right now, like 7 of them. Like it is really good.
Usually this like chicken, like you're not gonna find it at like fancy restaurants or anything. It's like at a ugly looking like food stall, but it's so worth it. Try it. That chicken, like you'll never have like chicken as good as that one. And last but not least, obviously like tacos, like tropical fruits. Like if you see a guy selling mangoes like in the street, buy them, eat them every day. They're delicious. You'll never have mangoes like that. And also be sure to check out the local markets and try different fruits that you've never seen before. We tried a thing called mame, which maybe you knew from Venezuela, but I had definitely never tried mame before. And what were those weird like grosellas, which like are these little things that like have a texture of celery and taste super sour that they mix with like hot sauce. So a lot of interesting things that you can find in the local market. So definitely make a stop. Now let's talk about language in the Yucatan Peninsula. Most commonly it's Spanish, but you can also hear Mayan, which is beautiful and super interesting. And English is widely spoken in like a lot of the touristy places, but it really helps if you know some Spanish words.
Here are some basic Spanish words and phrases to help you along in your trip throughout the Yucatan. Feel free to correct me with my pronunciation. So before starting a conversation with like anyone, or even like when you enter a store, it's polite to say buenos dias or buenas tardes, which means good morning or good afternoon. That's just like a very common greeting.
There's also hola, which means hello, or hola como estás, which means like hello, how are you?
Gracias or muchas gracias, which means thank you or thank you very much, are also very important to know. And sí
means yes.
No.
No. Por favor means please, and I think an easy phrase to like learn, so you ask like in markets and stuff before you pay, it's cuánto cuesta, which means how much is it. It was definitely very easy for us to move around the Yucatan Peninsula because Spanish is my first language. I'm from Venezuela and Gordon speaks Spanish as well. But you're gonna be fine if you learn like these phrases, a couple words here and there, and English is widely spoken, so you're gonna be okay in that department.
Unfortunately, in 2022, we still have to talk about COVID. First, it's important to know that there are no like entry requirements related to COVID in Mexico. So like you don't have to take a COVID test. You also don't have to like prove any kind of like vaccination.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get in.
But one thing you should know is that people in Mexico wear masks like more than anywhere we've ever seen. You have to wear masks like indoors, and like they really like check for it. Some places like they spray like your shoes and like your backpack. They give you like hand sanitizer, so
the floor mats with like sanitizer. I
yeah,
guess, like,
a lot of people walk like with masks like outside. Even you don't have to, but just keep in mind that the mask wearing is like strict in Mexico.
They do take it very seriously.
Yeah. We have some tips for you so you can have the best experience possible when you're visiting the Yucatan Peninsula. And the first one is go to places very early as you can. Become a morning person so you can like beat the heat and beat the crowds.
Also, don't forget your mosquito repellent at home. The Yucatan has very aggressive mosquitoes, and especially in the wet season, they come out in full force like heat-seeking missiles. So bring your repellent.
You have to use it at 6 p.m. pretty much like in every place in the Yucatan Peninsula.
This one kind of goes along with getting to places early, but because it's so hot in the Yucatan, it's important to wear hats and like long sleeve shirts to protect yourself from the sun. Especially also if you're going to cenotes or the BACALAR lagoon, for example, because you're not allowed to enter with sunscreen or any kind of like lotions just to protect the natural habitat.
When it comes to like drinking water, you can really not drink water from the taps, and we're really careful and we even like brush our teeth with like bottled water just to be safe. Even though like when we ate out, like we ate vegetables and we wash our stuff with like tap water and we never got sick. But
we were never too cautious with food. Like we totally encourage you to like eat street food and eat in the markets, and we never got sick. I got sick once, and that was in Mexico City from a hotel room service. So most of the places are perfectly safe, and you don't have to worry about going out there and eating street food.
Last but not least, and this is probably the most like important tip that we can give you, is like go off the beaten path when you're in the Yucatan Peninsula. It has so much more to offer than like the main places like Tulum, Playa del Carmen, Cancun. Like we can almost guarantee, right, that you're gonna have the best experience if you go out of the beaten path, right?
Yeah, it's just way easier to connect with like local people and have like more authentic experiences when you get to the more off the beaten path places. To be perfectly transparent, like nowhere is like totally off the beaten path, so you don't have to be like worried about like being in the middle of nowhere. But like if you get away from like the very touristy places, then it's just like, I don't know,
it's
connect
different.
with locals.
It is way better. We cannot recommend it enough.
So now we will very briefly touch on the history of the Yucatan Peninsula. The peninsula is famous for its Mayan heritage. So there are over 300, I think, Mayan sites all across the Yucatan Peninsula. Still today, you'll see people dressed in traditional Mayan clothing, and if you go to the smaller villages, you'll hear them speaking in like the traditional Mayan languages.
That was one of the coolest things that we like got to witness, because at times, because we speak Spanish, it didn't feel like super foreign until we went to the smaller towns and we like saw a completely different culture, right?
Yeah,
like it was so cool. A lot of the foods are also like have like Mayan origins. And you would, like, I think outside of Mexico and like in the world, like people think that the Mayan culture is like extinct somehow, and they were very clear about it. It's like, we're not extinct. And when you're there, it's obvious that they're not, you know, like the Mayan culture is like strongly present in the Yucatan Peninsula.
And in a way, the people that lived in the Yucatan, they didn't really consider themselves Mexican for like a very long time. So some of like the traditions and like cultural things that you associate with Mexico aren't very strong in the Yucatan Peninsula. Like mariachis and that kind of stuff. Like you may find it, but it's not exactly like traditional.
Yeah, because it wasn't like a part of Mexico until like very recently.
The Yucatan Peninsula was also one of the first places that the Spanish conquistadors landed in the Americas and kind of like developed their own culture. So like the towns of Campeche, Valladolid, and Merida, they were founded in like the 1500s by Spanish conquistadors, and that's why you have that like beautiful colonial Spanish style. They didn't really agree with the Mayans, and there was a lot of like really sad history in the Yucatan Peninsula.
It's worth like reading about. Like if we're going there, we're not going to bore you with like too many details, but it is interesting to know because you can really like understand like how the Yucatan Peninsula, like why is it like so different than like the rest of Mexico. We are almost wrapping up this video, but we didn't want to leave out like some things that we didn't like when we visited the Yucatan Peninsula. I think this has to be like more normalized. Like people usually only share like the good, and then if you share the bad things, like you help other travelers not to like fall for these type of things. And the first and like saddest one that we observed was like we saw Americans like being overcharged by a lot.
Yeah, so it seemed like the people that were selling activities to Americans in some cases were playing off the language barrier and selling them like packages that they didn't actually ask for or need. And because they couldn't like ask for what they were getting, they were just spending like 10 times more than they should have.
Yeah, so that's why like part of the reason why we always share prices in our videos and our blog posts is so you know how much we paid. Like even if we get ripped off, which has happened in like our videos, like people say it, you know, and then you're aware of like how much things are so you don't overpay, because that is like one of our biggest like travel like pet peeve, right? That should not happen. And every time that this happens, like I think it's our job as a traveler to like share it, and like if you can leave a better review if it happened to you, just do something so it doesn't happen to like other people. Another thing that we didn't like that pretty much like only applies to like long-term travelers is that there was a lack of healthy food options. Even at the supermarket, like everything has like added sugar. Like it was hard for us because we do like we work out, we go to the gym, we try to eat healthy, believe it or not, especially if you watch our food videos. For 90% of the time we do try to eat healthy, and it was hard in Mexico.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get like salads or anything like green if you go out for like a meal. It's just like tortillas and pork and fried things.
Which I guess is different if you go to like the touristy places, because if you go to Tulum, I bet everything is like salads, but we just don't know because we didn't go there. But in the smaller places, like it's gonna be a little bit tricky.
And the last thing is that there seems to be a lot of garbage just laying around. So in particular, like HOLBOX had a lot of garbage, and that was I don't know. I think that was very sad to see when we were there. But just like on the streets, like lying around, there doesn't seem to be like very solid infrastructure to collect garbage. So people just like throw things on the side of the road.
That is it for this video about the Yucatan Peninsula. It feels kind of weird because we did mean to make this video from Mexico, and we wanted to do like this whole like goodbye Mexico, thank you, but now it's been like what, like 6 weeks now?
We're in Albania. We're very far from Mexico.
But we are super grateful to the Yucatan Peninsula. We had such a blast. We saw so many unique and interesting places, had delicious foods, met incredible people, so we are super grateful. And it's kind of weird too because like Mexico is like close to home.
Yucatan, thank you for the warm welcome. We had an amazing time. It was an awesome 70 days.
Thank you so much for watching. We are getting ready to make a Q&A video, so if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Like, we encourage you to ask us anything because we really want to help you plan your perfect trip to the Yucatan Peninsula, and we're happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Subscribe to follow the travel series because we're in Albania and we're making really cool videos here.
Adios, amigos.
Ciao.
Ciao.